Hey, I know it's late, but I'm gonna see if I can knock this out real quick. Should be faster this way than it is typing a bunch of comments in the code anyways. Uh, this is a response to a person who asked for a critique of their, yeah, CRUD, create, read, update. It's a simple application that kind of simulates a database. Uh, and I was going through writing a pretty in-depth response, and it just seemed like maybe this is a better use of my time. So first thing first, Visual Studio kind of doesn't like it when you do this. So we'll simplify all of those to, well, yeah, all of those to just string. They both work, but string with a capital letter is a CLR type, theoretically, and string with a lowercase letter is a C# type. There's not a practical difference, but whatever, it's convention. Also convention, we don't use this. I know that makes this ambiguous, but there's another convention to deal with that, which is property names are capitalized. Just like that. And those didn't change because they were ambiguous. My editor is going real slow for some reason. Probably because these are in fact ambiguous and it's trying to figure out which one's which. You can do it. Stop it. Alright. Again, we don't need these this prefixes, etc., etc. But the thing of it is, we actually don't need any of this at all. I really hope that my computer's not going to go slow like that all night. Hold on. Try restarting this. I don't know what the deal is. I figured it's something to do with the cache for IntelliSense, but whatever. All of this stuff right here, this is straight Java. C#, we don't do this. We don't do this. Get, set, you're just doing a bunch of busy work here for no reason at all. The way that you write this in C# is you just come right up here and now you have a set of auto properties. Well, you would if I hadn't screwed it up, but there. It's hard to write 3 at once, apparently. This generates methods behind the scenes that do exactly what you were doing by hand. The only difference is that these methods you will call as if they were just plain old fields. Alright, so there is already a toString method on every object in .NET. User is an object, even though you didn't actually explicitly subclass object or whatever you want to call it. So first thing I'm going to do is rename this to match the name of the other method. And then, because this hides an inherited member, what I'm going to do is just type in oh lord. Well, the easy way to do it is probably just to add override. So now we're actually overriding the normal string or toString method instead of making up our own. Alright, I don't know, whatever. I don't like lots and lots of comments. First thing first, the way that you're doing this all in the main method is bad. Don't do that. It's just going to confuse you in the long run. It's going to make your code a lot harder to maintain. I'm going to fix that eventually, but not right now. First thing I'm going to cover is just the basic operation of the program. Right? So I'm okay with this. It doesn't make me a lot of difference how you do that. But what you do down here is a little bit strange to me. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit because there's a lot of code on the screen. I hope that everybody can still read. Yeah, so entry allowed. That is just a weird place to put that. So what we're going to do instead is I'm just going to say valid ID, because that's what you're actually talking about, is the ID valid? And the ID is valid if it's not already in the database. So to me, you get the ID first. What you do here is you get the user's other data, and then you add the yeah. Like right here, please enter a prefix, please enter a suffix, then you check the ID. And if it doesn't work out, then you make them redo it? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter as long as that's not inside the loop. To me, I would have you enter the ID first, but yeah. I don't know, what did this say before I started changing everything? Now I feel silly. Yeah, you're prompting for the new stuff, but you're not going to throw it away, you're going to keep it, so that's fine. It's whatever. For some reason I thought that the ID thing was going to loop all the way back up here, but it's not. That's silly of me. It's 1:03 in the morning. Hush. So what we're going to do first is reset valid ID equals user list dot any user ID equals oh, well, we need to get the ID first, don't we? So we'll do that. User ID is equal to, user ID is inaccessible due to protection level. I forgot to change that just a second ago. What that's saying is that, like you had these as private fields, but then you had public getter, setter, accessors. We're doing the same thing here. We're just going to declare these as public, otherwise they'll end up private, which is pretty useless for us right now anyways. We set valid ID to false down here. We may set it to true depending on what ID you entered. If valid ID, then we will continue and do the rest of the work. Which is this. Oh no, that's not it. It's this. And we will only do that while valid ID is false. Down here you have a pair of braces after the while. I think you may be confused about how do while works, and that's not necessary. I'm just going to double check, make sure I actually grabbed everything. Entry allowed, that's fine. I do need to handle this case, I guess, because you handle it, so else. A user with this ID already exists, please try again, that's fine. The rest of this we can delete now because we've just already done that. Alright, so see, this is a little bit shorter, not a whole lot maybe, but the main thing for me is that it more clearly expresses your intent. I'm really big, not necessarily in my hobby code because I make that confusing because it's entertaining to me, but I'm really big in a professional sense on making it clear to your fellow programmer what you're trying to do. So that's the first thing to me. Next is, if you wanted to read stuff about an existing user, this is a really bad decision for exactly the reason I was just talking about. You have a counter here, and you're not actually counting anything. What you would have wanted to do here is a Boolean, so like if, and then down here you would say found equals true, and then if found, or if not found, then you do that. But that's not really the pattern that I would go with personally. What I would do is something more like var user equals user list dot single or default u dot user ID equals user ID. If, alright, well it's not an if, but what we're going to do is say we want any single user from the list with this ID. If there's more than one user, this throws an exception. Like if there's more than one result, this throws an, this asserts that only one item in the list can match this. So it will scan the entire list and throw an exception if it finds more than one. If it finds one, it will return you that one. If it does not find one, then it will return null. So that's what we're going to check on down here. If user is not equal to null, then we do the work, because we just found the guy. We don't need found. I'm getting rid of that entirely. We don't need this for each anymore either. And then we'll have an else case here for no such user. And see, what this does is it makes it obvious that we don't actually care how many of these things there are, we just want to know if there is one or not. I did mention that this reads the entire list. That means that this takes longer every time you add something to the list, no matter where the item is in the list. You get the idea. List is not really a good idea for what you're doing. I'll talk about that at the end of the video, I think. What I want to do right now is just talk about how to evolve what you have. This is kind of Java-y to me, I think. I don't know. I don't normally declare crap all in one place. I guess it makes sense. I'm not going to change it, I suppose, but yeah. I don't know why we're assuming that it's available, but var valid ID equals, you get the idea. We're going to do exactly the same thing we just did. Any it's only valid if that's not true, so if valid ID, then we'll update just like this. Well, maybe not just like this, I don't know, whatever. So that updates the suffix prefix stuff, and then we're going to do the whole get ID thing on the list. Oh, we're not going to do this, yeah. It is weird to me that you're changing the user ID. I guess you're doing it just because you wanted to be able to do it. And that makes sense, kind of. But normally IDs are permanent. In actual CRUD applications, you don't change IDs. I don't know. Whatever. So then... Wait. No. I've got myself backwards here. I think I did this out of order. Is that anything? Let me make sure that I've got your ID available. Is available. So you create this way up here, but you don't use it except here. I guess you're using it for this do while. But the do while is inside the for each, so you don't need this. That's what's throwing me off. Yeah, whatever. Okay. What we're actually going to do is this. User equals user list dot single or default. It's going to be exactly the same trick as above. If user is not equal to null, then we just do all this work. Var valid ID equals valid ID equals false. And this is the kind of thing that I would refactor out into an extra method, personally. I mean, especially this, because you're doing this valid ID thing a lot. But I'll get to that later on, like I said. I should start making a list of things that I'll get to later on, but I'm not going to do it right now. So the thing we actually have to do is get an ID. New ID, is that what you called it? Yeah, equals console.read. You have code down here for that, I'll just copy it. Alright. Then, enter user's ID. Valid ID equals user list dot contain dot any user dot user ID equals new ID. There we go. But it's backwards. So C# doesn't allow variable shadowing, so if you have user outside the scope here, then you have to change this to something else. The normal thing to do is just U, like the first letter of whatever it is that you're working with. So there you have that. So valid ID, what we want here is if valid ID, then we want to do all of this. User ID equals new ID. User dot prefix equals new pre. User dot suffix equals new suffix. There we go. And like I was saying, because these are now auto properties, you access them exactly like fields. Except that the implementation is now hidden behind an automatically created method, which is cool. So then we'll have this stolen. Updated information. It's not an update though, it's an actual new user. That's like, the update part in CRUD means you update the data associated with an existing ID. And you're not actually doing that, you're just making a new one. Like, I don't even, like, in order for this to be an update, you would at least have to remove the original one, and you're not removing the original one, so. Yeah. All this is doing is just adding a new user. Alright, so this runs while valid ID is false. So, there we go. Is the new ID available? I don't know, and I don't care anymore, because that whole thing is gone. I think that one's a lot clearer now. But again, it's especially now that I have gone back in here and changed the code, it's a lot easier to see that this is really exactly the same method as the new user. Well, it's not even a method, but you get the idea. Like, enter a prefix, enter a suffix, okay? Prefix, suffix, valid ID, false, valid ID, false. You see how the logic repeats? So yeah. What we'll want to do is go back and refactor that for sure. let's go ahead and get the delete thing out of the way first. Enter user ID. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. User, etc., etc., etc. If it's null, then no. If it's not null, then great. Oh wait, it goes up there. If you do the counting thing again, remember we're not doing that. So yeah. User list.remove at. Wow, okay, hold on. Here's the thing. You only have one of each user in the list, right? So why bother with remove at? Let's try this. We could remove, so that'll tell it a specific user to remove. It'll remove the first occurrence, or we can do this, remove all, and then that'll take out everything that matches this predicate. Sorry, we have to do you again. So every user with that ID would be removed from the list. That's fine because there's only one. We don't want duplicates are not a valid thing, so it doesn't matter that we're removing more than one because it's not supposed to be in there anyways. In order to determine whether or not you did it, so that you could say successfully removed or no such user, what we would need to do is count the number of items in the list before the remove and after the remove. So let's just say, I don't know. User list.length our count. So original count, user list.remove if then we'll print your error message. And if not, then it's fine. We actually did remove the guy, which I don't see you printing a message for, but if I already deleted it, then I apologize. But yeah, that's actually all we have to have for that. Again, you have this funny thing with the blocks after the while. There's no need for those. Those don't do anything. You also had some code up here in blocks that actually did nothing. It was a lexical scope, but there was no reason to actually add the scope. You'll have to watch one of my other videos if you want to hear about lexical scope. I don't know. I don't really have time to talk about exactly what impact that has on your application just right now. Quit the program. Great. While running, what on earth does that do? Running equals false. Okay, I got you. So this just prints everything, and that's fine. What you could do here, though, is if user list dot count so just like that. Else. There. So that's exactly the same thing. It says if there's anything on this list, then print everything on the list, and we can use just WriteLine without actually calling a method now, because WriteLine actually calls toString, but it calls object toString, which we just overrode earlier. So no need for the actual explicit call that you had in there now. And then, yeah, so it's pretty good so far. We've made progress, but there's still a lot of repetition, and there's one little weird thing that I want to actually fix here. Well, for one thing, that's not necessary anymore. I was just talking about that, wasn't I? And also, last is a bad idea in general for a reason that I don't really want to get too deep into, but we want user list dot count minus 1. What last does, it will iterate every single item in the list, so it takes longer and longer to get the last item, whereas since we have a list, we can just print it. No big deal. This is on what? Add, create. Yes, okay. So rather than even doing this in the first place, why don't we our user equals new user and then we'll just add user and keep a reference to that user for use right here rather than having to go look him up later. Bam. This is exactly the same thing, except that rather than using an index lookup, we're using a reference. Like this reference points to the user, and then this list also has a reference to that user. So they're like sharing the guy, basically. So, yeah. Alright, so let's talk about larger refactoring on the whole don't repeat yourself thing, right? Let's start with this one because it doesn't have a whole lot of crap to print. I guess I should say delete user, since it's CRUD, right? What we're going to have to do is pass a reference to the user list. And this is going to change from user list to users, because I just changed the name of the whatever. That's fine. Oh, no, remove all. Sorry, my mistake. So we'll leave that as a list for now. I said for now for a reason, and I'm about to get into that reason. So here it is. List is a bad match for what you're intending to do here. The concepts, the things you're trying to perform, the ideas you're working with, they don't match a list. What you want is instead a hash set of users. Just like that. Oh, not a hash set. What am I thinking? Dictionary. I've been writing a lot of Rust code lately. In Rust, it's called a hash map, and in C# there is a hash set, which is actually kind of a derivative of a hash map, but hash map is not called hash map in C#, it's called dictionary. Don't know why. I didn't design it. That threw me off for a second there. So what we're doing here is we're saying this is a dictionary. We're actually going to have real keys. Those keys are going to be your user IDs, and yeah, it's going to save us a lot of work here on some of these methods. Let's start with this one down here since we already refactored it. We'll go with iDictionary user users. It's going to be string users. There we go. So now we have a dictionary of users. We're what we're going to do is users.remove user ID. This actually has a return value, bool. So if users.remove user ID, then, or sorry, if not, that is, if we fail to remove a user with that ID, then we print your error message, otherwise we don't do anything. See how much easier that gets just because we changed the data type we're using? It's like a one-liner now. There. We've got other refactoring to do here for the same change. It's going to be basically the same stuff over and over again. So if user, did I change the name of that for everything? Yes, I did. Okay, good. That's fine with me. If users.contains key, then and we just leave else the same. See how much shorter this is getting already. It's crazy. Alright. I don't think we need valid ID anymore. Well, I mean, we do. It's just not doing anything. So, here's what we're going to do. Yes. I hate this looping kind of error checking stuff. It's just so annoying to have to deal with. Databases let you avoid this kind of thing, thank goodness, but there's just usually not a really clean, pretty way to write it. You have to write something obscenely goofy no matter what, so whatever. While user ID null or users that contains key user ID. And this has to be a string, because otherwise it doesn't know what type it's supposed to be because I'm assigning it to null up there. So this is going to do exactly what we wanted. Except the error message. Which makes me wonder if this just doesn't need to be a do instead, but you get the idea. We'll go with that. Please enter an ID. Oops. All right. So Please enter an ID, set it to null, read it from the console. If this thing contains that ID, then user ID with that ID already exists. Please try again. Hopefully they won't do that too many times. And that brings us down here where we just do this and call it good. Alright, so what we're going to do is just totally remove all of this stuff entirely and make that create users. Go down here and alright, so that's good now. Is it built? I don't know if it builds or not. It doesn't quite build. That's fine. Alright, so choice equals null. I don't know why he did that. I would have gone with string empty or just actual null. But there's no reason not to. It's just, I don't know. Are you testing for the actual string null at any point in this whole thing? No. So it doesn't actually need any value at all. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Alright, so choice C, create users, choice R, we're going to read a user, so put that right here, static void read user, dictionary, string user, users, enter the user's ID. So this gets really easy now if what's it called? Users contains key, user ID, right line, users, user ID, else. You had some weird formatting here. There we go. That should probably do it. Else do this. So let's read, create, read, delete. We need update, which is your most complicated method, to be perfectly honest with you. But again, the update actually only just creates a new user. The only thing it does in addition is it prints the user's information. So how about we just do this? We print his current stuff. Just like this. That's fine. If users dot contains key user ID, then current information, great. And then the rest of it is all just create. So And then, of course, we're going to make this update users, which goes right down here under read, static void update user. So that's actually perfectly fine. Except that we need to change this to users, user ID, just like that. The wording's going to be different. I just, you know, whatever. I don't personally like the idea of having some operation carried out and something printed to the screen in the same method. I think that those should be separate. The output and the actual business logic, or whatever it is, the objective is, logging should be separate from functionality. Like, it's one thing to log to the console if you're providing logging for some application that does something other than console stuff, you know, but yeah, whatever. Print all the information in the database. There's really no reason to meddle with this as a result of the change over there. So, I'm going to put it down here, static. So the thing about this is a dictionary is unordered in every possible conceivable way. It's actually a hash map, and it's like in order of the way things got hashed. You have no idea what that's going to be because you don't know what the hash did with people. The most important thing is that it's not going to print them out in the order that you put them in, which is what a list is going to do. So what I'm going to do is this. If users.any, then for each our user in users, order by u dot value dot, hold on, for each user in users dot values order by value dot prefix. How about we just order them by user ID? That'll work. So now they're in some kind of an order. I don't know what kind of order because I don't know what your IDs are, but they're going to be sorted. So there. Alright, what is that leaving out? Is that leaving out anything? Oh, it is leaving out something pretty important, actually. Alright, now you have a whole bunch of ifs here. Why you have a whole bunch of ifs? Don't get me started. What we actually want is something more like this. And there's no reason for choice to ever be set to null. You just come down here, set it here. You don't use it anywhere else anyways. Right? Right. Alright. There's not really any reason for all these right lines either, but I'm going to leave that the same because I want the formatting to look the same whenever this is done. And if I changed anything real big, then, you know, let me know because that wasn't the intent, and it may be some kind of a mistake on my part. I don't know. We'll see. So, easy thing to do here is switch console.readline, which actually allows us to avoid creating a variable for choice entirely. It also allows us to handle this C versus C thing a lot easier. So that's those covered. That's that covered. You see what we're doing here, right? Update users, what I was thinking of. So, an if is a branching construct, and everybody understands that, but that doesn't tell you why you're branching. This tells us that we only want one option. Out of all of those ifs, only one is ever going to execute. So again, it comes down to conveying your intent through the code that you wrote. C# does not allow fall through from one case to the next. It looks like that's what I'm doing, but actually this just lets you say these two cases are the equivalent. It's not fall through, I'm actually just assigning the same thing to both cases. That's the way I understand it anyways. Fall through is not legal, that's why I have a break here for everything, but yeah. I don't know, just wanted to cover that for no apparent reason. Print all users break. And then final is quit case Q or Q. All right. Oddly enough, this would be one of those few valid cases for a goto so that you could break out of the case, the switch statement here, and also break the while loop, which is kind of a scary thought, but all right, so the original was, how long was the original? 250 lines? 266 lines. The new one is 149 lines, so it's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit clearer, I think, and it's making use of, well, first of all, more idiomatic code. I modified the way that the user class is defined a lot, but more importantly, it's making use of a lot more modular code, and a lot more appropriate data type than list. Not that I've got anything against list. I think it's one of the most marvelous things in the standard class library, but yeah, so just not appropriate for this particular job. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. I was going to talk about how to refactor the update and the read, or sorry, the update, the create, and all that kind of stuff, so that they shared code for this finding a unique ID thing. But now that update kind of just defers the whole unique ID thing to create, then it's kind of irrelevant. All right, yeah. Hopefully you got some good out of this. I certainly enjoyed doing the review for you. I'm going to paste my version of the code in the thread, and I'm going to provide you with a link to this video, which will be uploading sometime tonight, I think. It's not that long, but it's not that short either. It took about 50 minutes, so it probably won't be ready to view before I'm asleep anyways. Take it easy.